The stars looked different today from the bridge of the stellar harmony. Commander Zethkari pressed his long fingers against the viewing screen and watched the blue planet grow larger as they moved closer. His silver skin shimmed with excitement, because today would change everything. Today, the Galactic Council would welcome its 848th member species. Jake Morrison stood in his office on New Haven Colony and stared at the message on his screen for the 10th time. The words still seemed impossible. Real aliens were coming to visit them. Not the made-up stories from old movies, but actual living beings from other worlds. He touched his comm device and called his staff. "Amy, Ben, Helen, get to my office right now," he said. His voice shook a little. "We're about to make history." Lieutenant Colonel Amy Rodriguez was cleaning her dress uniform when the call came. She had been the military liaison for New Haven Colony for 3 years and had never expected to need her formal clothes for greeting aliens. She ran her hands through her dark hair and wondered what they would look like. Security Chief Ben Carter was checking weapon systems when his comm buzzed. He had spent 20 years keeping colonists safe from wild animals and equipment failures. Now he had to worry about creatures from space. He made sure his team knew where all the emergency buttons were located. Dr. Helen Murphy had been studying alien radio signals for months. She was the closest thing they had to an expert on non-human life. Her small lab was filled with translation programs and communication devices. She grabbed her tablet and ran toward the admin building. The three of them burst into Jake's office at the same time. Helen was breathing hard and her glasses were crooked. Amy had her uniform jacket in her hands. Ben looked serious and ready for trouble. "Show them the message," Jake said. Helen read the alien transmission out loud. "Greetings to the human species of New Haven Colony. We are representatives of the Galactic Council. We come in peace to offer your species membership in our alliance. We will arrive in 2 standard days for diplomatic talks." "This is really happening," Amy whispered. "We're not alone." "What do we know about them?" Ben asked. His hand moved toward his weapon without thinking. "Not much," Helen said. "They call themselves Alterians. Their homeworld has lighter gravity than ours. They seem to be herbivores based on what I can figure out from their language patterns." Jake looked out his window at the colony buildings. 12,000 humans lived here. Farmers, miners, teachers, shopkeepers, regular people who were about to meet aliens. "We need to make a good impression. Amy, organize a welcome ceremony at the main spaceport. Ben, I want security but keep weapons hidden. Helen, work on translation programs." 2 days passed quickly. The whole colony was excited. Children drew pictures of what aliens might look like. Adults practiced speeches. Everyone wanted to be part of this moment. Commander Zethkari stood in his ship's preparation room with 5 other Alterians. They were all tall and thin with silver skin and large dark eyes. Their ship had traveled for weeks to reach this remote human world. "Remember the greeting ritual," Zethkari told his team. "We release the friendship spores and breathe them together. This shows trust and creates bonds between species." "What if they don't understand?" asked Navigator Yemshi. "All intelligent species respond to chemical friendship signals," Zethkari replied. "It's built into advanced life forms." The stellar harmony landed at New Haven Spaceport exactly on schedule. Hundreds of humans gathered to watch. Jake stood at the front with Amy, Ben, and Helen beside him. A red carpet led from the landing pad to a small stage with microphones. The alien ship was beautiful. It looked like a giant silver flower with smooth, curved walls. No weapons were visible anywhere. Soft music played from hidden speakers. A door opened in the ship's side. Commander Zethkari stepped out first. The humans gasped. He was 3 feet taller than any human and moved like he was dancing. His teammates followed him toward the stage. Jake stepped forward with a smile. "Welcome to New Haven. I'm Jake Morrison, Colony Administrator." Zethkari bowed gracefully. "Honored Jake Morrison, I am Commander Zethkari. We bring greetings from 847 species across the galaxy." The translator devices worked perfectly. Both sides could understand each other clearly. Helen made notes as fast as she could type. "We would like to begin the friendship ceremony," Zethkari said. He reached into a pouch on his belt and pulled out a small silver device. This will help our species bond together. That sounds wonderful, Jake replied. He had no idea what was coming. Zethkari activated his device. Tiny spores floated into the air like glittering dust. The other Alterians breathed deeply and smiled. The spores smelled like flowers and made the aliens' skin glow brighter. The humans breathed the spores too. At first, nothing happened. Then, Jake started coughing. Amy's eyes began to water. Helen couldn't stop sneezing. Within seconds, half the human delegation was having trouble breathing. Ben Carter saw his people collapsing and reacted like he had been trained. His hand went to his weapon. "Medical emergency," he shouted into his comm. "Possible poison gas attack." "Wait," Helen tried to say between coughs, but her voice was too weak. More humans fell to their knees, gasping for air. Some children in the crowd started crying as their parents collapsed. It looked like the aliens were killing everyone with their strange spores. Ben drew his sidearm and pointed it at Zethkari. "Stop whatever you're doing right now." The Alterian commander stared at the weapon in horror. In 847 first contact situations, no species had ever responded to the friendship ritual with violence. His team started backing toward their ship. "This is not what we intended," Zethkari said. But Ben couldn't hear him over the sounds of sick humans. "Security teams, weapons free," Ben ordered. "Protect the civilians." 20 armed guards appeared from hidden positions around the spaceport. They surrounded the aliens with rifles raised. The crowd of humans was running away as fast as they could while coughing and wheezing. Zethkari had never seen weapons pointed at him before. His species had been peaceful for thousands of years. The sight of angry humans with guns made his silver skin turn pale white. "We must leave immediately," he told his team. The Alterians ran back to their ship faster than humans could follow. The door closed behind them just as the first warning shots hit the ground near their landing gear. Jake Morrison lay on the ground, barely able to breathe, watching the most important moment in human history turn into a disaster. The alien ship lifted off and disappeared into the sky within minutes. Ben Carter helped Jake to the medical center where doctors were treating dozens of humans for severe allergic reactions. The friendship spores that worked for every other species were poison to human lungs. Commander Zethkari sat in his command chair as his ship fled toward Galactic Council space. His hands shook as he composed his emergency report. "Priority message to all council members," he dictated. "First contact with human species has failed catastrophically. They attacked our diplomatic team without warning or provocation. These beings are extremely aggressive and dangerous. They responded to our friendship offer with weapons and violence. I recommend immediate military action before they can spread beyond their current territory." The message was sent across the galaxy at light speed. Within hours, every member species of the Galactic Council knew about the savage humans who attacked peaceful diplomats. None of them knew the truth about what really happened at New Haven Spaceport. The emergency session of the Galactic Council began 3 days after Commander Zethkari's message reached the capital world of Nexus Prime. Representatives from 847 species gathered in the great circular chamber that had seen peaceful discussions for over 2,000 years. Today felt different. High Counselor Vextar of the Hegemony species stood at the central podium. His thick armor plates gleamed under the chamber lights, and his forearms moved as he spoke. Unlike most council members, the Hegemony still maintained a military force. They called it necessary for protecting trade routes and keeping peace. "Fellow council members," Vextar began, "we face a threat unlike any we have encountered. These humans attacked a diplomatic mission without cause. They used weapons against beings who came in peace." Murmurs filled the chamber. Many species had never seen real violence. War was something from ancient history books. Commander Zethkari stood when called to give his report. His silver skin still looked pale from the shock of what happened on New Haven. "They pointed weapons at us immediately. Even when their people were suffering, their first response was violence. I have never seen such aggressive behavior." The aquatic Mordesh representative spoke through a translation device from her water tank. We too have encountered these humans. They poisoned our survey team's water supply on the world they call Riverside. That is not accurate, came a small voice from the back of the chamber. Dr. Kalana of the Science Division had been studying human activities for months. The contamination was accidental runoff from their mining operations. They offered to clean it when they learned of the problem. But her voice was lost in the growing panic. More representatives stood to share their stories about dangerous human encounters. The peaceful Kelthran delegate reported that humans had destroyed one of their deep space probes. The crystalline Silmurai claimed humans had attacked their trading post with explosive devices. Each story made the humans sound more violent and unpredictable. None of the speakers mentioned that the Kelthran probe had malfunctioned and exploded on its own. Nobody said that the Silmurai trading post had been destroyed by a meteor storm 3 days after the humans left. Fear was spreading faster than facts. Vextar listened to each report with growing satisfaction. The hegemony had been looking for a reason to expand their military for decades. The other council species always voted against increased defense spending. Now they had the perfect enemy. "Honorable council members," he said when the reports finished, "we cannot ignore this threat. These humans have shown they will attack, without warning. They poison water supplies and destroy peaceful missions. How long before they leave their small territory and threaten our worlds?" The chamber fell silent. Many species were thinking about their own colonies and trade routes. What would happen if violent humans decided to expand their territory? President Lisa Hamilton sat in the Situation Room under the White House on Earth and listened to Admiral Kevin Brooks explain their military situation. The news from New Haven had reached Earth 2 days ago through emergency faster-than-light communication. "We have 47 ships total," Admiral Brooks said. 30 are patrol vessels designed for asteroid mining and colony supply runs. 17 are actual warships, but they're all over 20 years old. "What about ground forces?" Lisa asked. "Better, but not by much. We have about 2 million military personnel spread across 15 worlds. Most are trained for peacekeeping and disaster. Relief, not combat." Dr. Helen Murphy's voice came through the communication system from New Haven Colony. "Madam President, I've been monitoring alien transmissions. They're preparing for war. I'm picking up military communications from dozens of species." Lisa rubbed her temples. 6 months ago, her biggest worry was the budget for new colony ships. Now she was looking at a war with an entire galaxy. "How many ships are we talking about?" she asked. Helen's voice was quiet when she answered. "Based on what I can intercept, over 2,000 vessels are moving toward assembly points. Some are larger than anything we've ever built." Admiral Brooks pulled up star charts on the main screen. "Our colonies are spread across 12 systems. If they hit us with those numbers, we can't protect everyone." "Options," Lisa said. "We try to negotiate," Brooks replied. "Or we prepare to fight with what we have." "Helen, any chance of diplomatic contact?" "I've been trying for 3 days, Madam President. They won't respond to any of our messages. I think they've already decided what they're going to do." Back on Nexus Prime, the council session continued. Vextar presented his military assessment to the gathered representatives. "My forces have identified 12 human worlds," he announced. "Small populations, light defenses. We estimate the entire human military at less than 50 vessels." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Many species had individual trading fleets larger than the entire human navy. "Surely such a small force cannot threaten the galaxy," said the Altarian delegate. Vextar's armor plates shifted to show displeasure. "Numbers mean nothing when dealing with a species that attacks diplomats. These humans are unpredictable and dangerous. We must act before they develop better weapons or form alliances with other aggressive species." The vote was swift and decisive. Only 12 species voted against military action. The rest approved the formation of a joint fleet to eliminate the human threat once and for all. Commander Zethkari watched the vote with mixed feelings. He had not intended to start a war when he filed his report, but the memory of weapons pointed at him still made his skin change color with fear. The military. Preparations began immediately. Species that had not built warships in centuries started converting cargo vessels into troop transports. The hegemony shared weapon designs with allies who had forgotten how to make anything more dangerous than mining equipment. Within a week, the largest military fleet in galactic history was assembling at the edge of human space. Over 2,000 ships carrying beings from dozens of worlds, all united in their fear of the violent humans. Admiral Brooks stood on the bridge of the flagship USS Liberty and watched the few human vessels that would make humanity's first line of defense. The crew was young and scared, but trying not to show it. "Any word from the diplomatic channels?" he asked. Communications Officer Janet Price shook her head. "Nothing, sir. They're maintaining radio silence." Through the bridge windows, Brooks could see the other human ships taking position around the colony world of Redemption. 3 cruisers and 8 destroyers against an entire galaxy's worth of firepower. "Sir," Lieutenant Danny Ross called from the sensor station, "I'm picking up massive energy signatures at the edge of the system. Whatever's coming, it's big." Brooks nodded grimly. "Signal all ships. Battle stations." Across human space, similar scenes played out as small human fleets prepared to face impossible odds. On Earth, President Hamilton addressed the nation for what might be the last time. "My fellow humans," she said, looking directly into the camera, "we face a threat beyond anything our species has ever encountered. An alliance of alien races is coming to destroy us because they believe we are too dangerous to exist." She paused and looked at her notes. "They are probably right about one thing. When cornered, when threatened with extinction, humans don't surrender. We fight. Today we'll show the galaxy what that means." On the bridge of the hegemony flagship Stellar Conquest, Vextar reviewed the final attack plans. The human worlds would be hit simultaneously to prevent any coordination. His forces outnumbered the humans 40-1. "Commander," he said to his tactical officer, "signal the fleet. We jump to human space in 1 hour. This war will be over before the humans know it started." But Vextar had made the same mistake as the rest of the Galactic Council. He assumed that superior numbers and technology would guarantee victory. None of them understood what they were really fighting. They thought they were going to war against a small, primitive species that could be easily defeated. Instead, they were about to discover that humanity had been preparing for this kind of fight for its entire evolutionary history. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous enemy isn't the strongest one. Sometimes it's the one with nothing left to lose. The first attack came at dawn on Redemption Colony. General Carl Dixon stood in the command center watching his sensor screens fill with enemy contacts. Red dots appeared faster than his computers could count them. Over 400 alien ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. "Jesus Christ," whispered Lieutenant Sarah Blake from the communication station. "There's so many of them." Dixon had spent 30 years in the military and had never seen anything like this. His entire defense force consisted of 3 aging cruisers and 12 fighters. Against a normal enemy, those ships would have been respectable. Against this alien armada, they were barely a speed bump. "All ships, this is General Dixon," he said into his comm unit. "Enemy fleet has arrived. You all know what we're here to do. Make them pay for every inch." Captain Nancy Walsh sat on the bridge of the cruiser USC Defiance and watched the alien fleet spread out like a metal cloud. Her ship was 23 years old and had been scheduled for retirement before this war started. Now it would never see another port. "Weapons status," she called to her tactical officer. "All missile tubes loaded, ma'am. Point defense systems online. We've got enough ammunition for maybe 20 minutes of heavy combat." Nancy nodded. 20 minutes to make a difference against 400 enemy ships. "Signal the fleet. Attack pattern. Delta. We're going straight at their flagship." The 3 human cruisers accelerated toward the center of the alien formation. Behind them, 12 fighters followed in a tight group. It looked like suicide, and that was exactly what the aliens expected. Commander Feltani of the Galactic Council fleet watched the human ships approach on his main screen. He commanded a vessel 3 times larger than the biggest human cruiser, with weapons that could destroy a city from orbit. "Sir," his weapons officer reported, "the humans are charging directly at us. No evasive maneuvers, no tactical formations. They're just coming straight ahead." Feltani studied the display. In all his years of military service, he had never seen such a simple attack plan. Perhaps they wished to surrender quickly rather than drag out their defeat. The alien fleet opened fire when the human ships reached maximum range. Thousands of energy beams and missiles filled the space between the two forces. The humans should have been vaporized instantly. Instead, something unexpected happened. The human ships didn't try to avoid the incoming fire. They flew straight through it, taking hit after hit, but they kept coming. The USC Defiance lost her shields within the first minute. Armor plates were torn away from her hull. Fire broke. Out on 3 decks. Hull breach on deck 7, Nancy's damage control officer reported. We're losing atmosphere fast. Seal it off and keep firing, Nancy ordered. Helm, take us closer to that big bastard in the center. The USC Defiance was dying, but her weapons were still working. Her missiles punched through the shields of 2 smaller alien vessels, and her laser cannons carved deep gouges in a third. Every shot was carefully aimed to do maximum damage. Lieutenant Tony Garcia flew his fighter through the alien formation like a man possessed. His small craft was too fast for the big alien weapons to track accurately, so he weaved between their capital ships looking for weak spots. Garcia to all fighters, he called over the radio. Their engine sections aren't heavily armored. Hit them where it hurts. His fighter screamed past an alien destroyer and released its full load of missiles at point-blank range. The explosion tore the enemy ship in half, but the blast also crippled Garcia's fighter. His engines were gone and life support was failing. This is Garcia, he said calmly into his radio. My bird's dead, but I've still got 1 torpedo left. I'm going to make it count. He pointed his dying fighter at the alien flagship and pushed the throttle as far as it would go. The aliens tried to shoot him down, but he was moving too fast and too erratically. His fighter hit the enemy ship's bridge at nearly the speed of light. Commander Feltani died instantly along with most of his senior staff. The flagship wobbled out of formation, temporarily leaderless and confused. The battle was being broadcast live to worlds across the galaxy. Species that had never seen real combat watched in shocked silence as the humans fought with a ferocity that seemed impossible. On the water world of Mordesh Prime, civilians gathered around public screens to watch the feed from Redemption. They expected to see the humans surrender quickly when faced with overwhelming odds. Instead, they watched the USC Defiance ram herself into the side of a hegemony battlecruiser. Captain Nancy Walsh never tried to escape. She stayed at her post and steered her ship directly into the enemy vessel. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire that could be seen from orbit. Why don't they retreat? Asked a young Mordesh watching the broadcast. They must know they cannot win. Her elder's tentacles writhed with confusion. I do not understand. They fight as if death means nothing to them. The same scene was playing out on hundreds of worlds. Species that had forgotten what war looked like were witnessing something beyond their comprehension. These humans didn't fight to win. They fought to inflict as much damage as possible before they died. General Dixon watched his fleet die from the command bunker on Redemption's surface. The USC Liberty lasted 18 minutes before an alien dreadnought cut her in half with a beam weapon. The USC Yorktown took down 3 enemy ships before she was overwhelmed. The fighters were gone within the first hour. Sir, Lieutenant Blake reported, we're getting communications from the alien fleet. They want to talk. Dixon was surprised. Put them through. The alien commander's voice came through the speakers with electronic translation. Human military leader, this is Sub-Commander Yextal of the Galactic Council Fleet. Your vessels have been destroyed. Surrender your colony and no civilians will be harmed. Dixon looked at his tactical display. The aliens had lost over 60 ships and thousands of crew members. For them, it was a costly victory. For humanity, it was exactly what they had planned. Sub-Commander, Dixon replied, I have a message for your Galactic Council. You want to see how humans fight? You've seen nothing yet. Every world you attack will cost you more than the last. We don't surrender, we don't retreat, and we don't negotiate with invaders. Be reasonable, Yextal said. You cannot possibly believe you can defeat our entire fleet. We're not trying to defeat you, Dixon said. We're trying to make you bleed. Every ship you lose here is one less ship you'll have for the next battle. Every soldier who dies today won't be there to kill human civilians tomorrow. The transmission ended. Dixon turned to his staff officers who were still alive in the bunker. "Gentlemen, ladies," he said, "the fleet is gone, but we're not finished. The aliens will land ground troops soon. I want every civilian evacuated to the deep shelters. Then we show these bastards what happens when you try to take a human world." 3 days later, Redemption Colony was a smoking ruin. The aliens had won, but the cost shocked the entire Galactic Council. They had lost 83 ships and over 12,000 personnel to capture one small human colony. Worse, the ground fighting had been a nightmare of booby traps and ambushes that killed thousands more alien soldiers. The human colonists had fought to the last person. Even children too young to hold weapons had carried messages between resistance fighters. The aliens found no one willing to surrender or collaborate. Subcommander Yextal sent his report to the Council with shaking hands. Human resistance was total and absolute. They used their own buildings as weapons, turned their infrastructure into death traps, and showed no concern for their own survival. I have never encountered such fanatical opposition. But the report that truly terrified the galaxy came from the alien medical teams. They had studied human prisoners and civilians to understand their psychology better. These beings appeared to have evolved for warfare, the chief medical officer wrote. Their stress response systems actually improve their combat effectiveness under extreme pressure. They seem to experience a chemical enhancement when facing death that makes them more dangerous, not less. Fighting them is like fighting a species that becomes stronger when cornered. On Earth, President Hamilton read the intelligence reports from Redemption with grim satisfaction. They had lost 12,000 civilians and soldiers, but the aliens had lost far more. "Admiral Brooks," she said during their daily briefing, "what's our status on the emergency ship construction?" "The first new vessels will be ready in 6 weeks, ma'am. We're building them specifically for this kind of fighting. No luxury quarters, no scientific equipment, just weapons and armor and crews who know they're not coming home." Lisa nodded. The galaxy wanted a war with humanity. They were about to get exactly what they asked for, and more than they could handle. The news from Redemption reached Earth 3 days after the battle ended. President Lisa Hamilton stood before a joint session of Congress and delivered the speech that would transform humanity forever. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice steady despite the weight of what she was about to announce. 12,000 of our citizens died at Redemption Colony. They died fighting an enemy that came to our worlds without warning, without negotiation, without mercy. The chamber was completely silent. Every representative knew this moment would be remembered for centuries. The aliens believe they can destroy us because we are small and weak. They are wrong about one thing. When you corner a human being, when you threaten everything they care about, they don't become weak. They become dangerous. Lisa paused and looked directly into the cameras broadcasting her speech across human space. "I am declaring total war mobilization. Every factory, every shipyard, every resource of our species will be dedicated to one purpose. We are going to teach the galaxy what happens when you try to exterminate humanity." Within hours, the transformation began. Chief Engineer Paul Stevens stood in the main shipyard orbiting Mars and watched his workers tear apart passenger liners to build warships. The new vessels would be nothing like the sleek, comfortable ships humans had built before. "The Vengeance class will have triple-thick armor around the reactor core," he explained to his design team. "No crew quarters, no recreational facilities, no escape pods. These ships have one mission: get close to the enemy and make sure both sides die together." The first Vengeance-class cruiser looked like a flying brick covered in weapons. Her crew, compartments were barely large enough for the essential personnel. Her reactor was designed to overload on command, turning the entire ship into a massive bomb. "She's not pretty," Stevens told the shipyard workers, "but she'll take half the alien fleet with her when she goes." Similar construction projects began on every human world. The new Berserker-class fighters were even more extreme. They carried no life support systems beyond a basic oxygen tank. The pilot compartment was so small that most crew members had to be under 6 feet tall to fit inside. Each Berserker carried a nuclear warhead where normal fighters would have landing gear. The pilots who volunteered for these ships knew they were signing up for one-way missions. Marine Colonel Susan Blake worked 18-hour days training the new human army at Camp Fury on Earth. Her soldiers were different from the peacekeeping forces that had protected human colonies before the war. "Listen up, Marines," she shouted to a group of recruits. "The old rules are gone. We don't take prisoners because the aliens don't want prisoners. We don't retreat because there's nowhere to run. We fight until we win, or until we're all dead." Training was brutal. Blake's Marines learned to turn every building into a fortress and every vehicle into a weapon. They practiced fighting in spacesuits, underwater, in zero gravity, and in toxic atmospheres. Most importantly, they learned to never surrender. "Your job is simple," Blake told them. "Kill as many aliens as possible before they kill you. Make them pay such a high price for every human world that they'll think twice about attacking the next one." The psychological changes were just as dramatic as the military ones. Dr. Richard Stone worked with military psychologists to understand what made humans so effective in combat. "We're not naturally more aggressive than other species," he explained to President Hamilton during a briefing. "But we have something they don't. When facing extinction, humans can shut off their self-preservation instincts completely. We can choose to die for our cause." "Is that why the aliens are so terrified of us?" Lisa asked. "Partially," Stone replied. "But there's something else. Most galactic species evolved to be peaceful. They avoid conflict because it's inefficient and wasteful. Humans evolved differently. We've been fighting each other for millions of years. War is literally built into our DNA." The alien response to human mobilization was panic. High Counselor Vextar stood before the Galactic Council and demanded immediate reinforcements for his fleet. "The humans are building ships designed for suicide attacks," he reported. "They're training soldiers who prefer death to capture. This is not a normal military force. This is an entire species converting itself into a weapon." Many council members were beginning to question the wisdom of fighting such an enemy. The peaceful Alterians had already withdrawn their ships from the front lines. 3 other species had quietly recalled their forces for defensive purposes. "Perhaps we should try negotiation," suggested the Kelthran representative. Vextar's armor plates shifted to show his anger. "Negotiate with beings who ram ships into our vessels? Who teach their children to make bombs? There is no negotiating with a species that has weaponized its own extinction instinct." The second major battle came 6 weeks after redemption, at Tiui, the human colony of New Terra. This time, the aliens faced the new human fleet designed specifically for war. Captain Roy Phillips commanded the lead ship USS Last Hope, one of the first Vengeance-class cruisers to see combat. His crew was half the size of a normal ship's complement, but every person aboard was a volunteer who had accepted they would not survive the battle. "Enemy fleet detected," his tactical officer reported. 230 alien vessels, approaching from multiple vectors. Phillips studied the display. The aliens had learned from redemption and were approaching more carefully this time. They expected the humans to charge directly at them again. Instead, the human fleet split into 3 groups and attacked from different angles. The new ships were faster and more maneuverable than their predecessors, designed to get close enough to use their most devastating weapons. The USS Last Hope accelerated toward a group of hegemony battle cruisers. Enemy fire tore chunks from her armor, but she kept coming. When her weapons range, Phillips ordered his gunners to target the alien ship's reactor cores. "All batteries, continuous fire," he commanded. "Don't stop shooting until we're dead." The Last Hope's missile launchers fired as fast as they could cycle. Her laser cannons burned through alien armor like paper. But the enemy return fire was just as devastating. "Hull breach on Deck 3, damage control reported." "Reactor containment is failing." Phillips smiled grimly. This was exactly what the ship had been designed for. "All hands, prepare for reactor overload. We're taking them with us." The Last Hope's reactor went critical just as she collided with the largest alien ship. The explosion vaporized both vessels and damaged 6 others in the formation across the battlefield. Similar scenes played out as human ships sacrificed themselves to inflict maximum damage on the enemy. The new Berserker fighters were even more effective, weaving through alien formations like angry hornets and detonating their nuclear payloads in the middle of enemy squadrons. Lieutenant Emma Garcia, sister of the Tony Garcia who died at Redemption, flew her Berserker into the bridge of an alien flagship. Her last transmission was heard across human space. "This is for my brother, you bastards." The Battle of New Terra lasted 4 hours. When it ended, the humans had lost 180 ships and their crews, but the aliens had lost over 300 vessels and retreated from the system in confusion and terror. The battle reports that reached the Galactic Council were unlike anything in their military history. "They don't fight to achieve victory," one commander wrote. "They fight to ensure that victory against them is meaningless. Every human ship that dies takes multiple alien vessels with it." Another report was even more disturbing. "I have studied the human psychological profiles captured from their computers. These beings actually volunteer for suicide missions. They compete for the chance to die killing us. How do you defeat an enemy that considers death acceptable as long as they hurt you?" The galaxy was learning that fighting humans was like fighting a natural disaster. They could be stopped, but the cost of stopping them grew higher with every battle. On Earth, President Hamilton reviewed the casualty reports from New Terra with Admiral Brooks. They had lost 30,000 trained spacers, but the aliens had lost twice as many. "How many more battles like this can we fight?" she asked. "As many as it takes," Brooks replied. "Our new construction program will give us 400 ships within 3 months. The aliens are building replacements too, but their crews are getting scared. Ours are getting angrier." Lisa nodded. The strategy was working. They couldn't defeat the galaxy's military forces in a straight fight, but they could make the war so costly that the aliens would eventually decide it wasn't worth fighting. The question was whether humanity could hold out long enough to break the enemy's will to continue. The answer would come soon enough. Intelligence reports showed another alien fleet assembling, bigger than the previous 2 combined. The galaxy was about to find out if there was any limit to how far humans would go to defend their freedom. The third battle came 8 months after the war began, at Terra Nova, humanity's oldest colony outside Earth's solar system. The alien fleet that approached the system was larger than anything seen before, over 800 ships from 30 different species, commanded by High Counselor Vextar himself aboard his flagship Stellar Dominion. "This ends today," Vextar announced to his fleet commanders. "We will destroy every human vessel and occupation, every human world. No more surgical strikes, no more limited engagements, total warfare." The human defense force waiting for them was smaller, but deadlier than ever before. Captain Roy Phillips commanded the new flagship USS Last Hope, named for the ship he had died commanding at New Terra. The resurrection program had brought him back along with dozens of other experienced commanders whose ships had been destroyed in previous battles. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "Alien fleet has 847 vessels. We have 120 ships and the orbital defense platforms." Phillips nodded calmly. The odds were worse than at Redemption, but the human fleet was no longer made up of converted civilian ships. These were purpose-built weapons of war, crewed by people who had volunteered for what everyone knew was a suicide mission. "Signal all ships," he ordered. "Attack pattern Omega. We're going to show them what 8 months of human engineering can do." The battle began differently than the previous engagements. Instead of charging directly at the enemy, the human fleet scattered into small groups and attacked from multiple directions simultaneously. The new ships were faster and more agile than anything the aliens had faced before. But the real surprise came from the orbital defenses around Terra Nova. Hidden weapon platforms that looked like civilian structures suddenly opened fire with weapons that had been designed specifically to kill alien ships. The humans had been studying captured alien technology and learning their weaknesses. Commander Telvara of the Kelthran battle group watched her shields collapse under human fire and couldn't understand what was happening. "These weapons are cutting through our defenses like they were designed specifically for our ship types." She was right. Human scientists had spent months analyzing the wreckage from Redemption and New Terra, identifying weak points in alien armor and shield systems. Every human weapon in the Terra Nova Defense Force had been modified to exploit those weaknesses. The USS Last Hope led a group of Vengeance-class cruisers straight into the center of the alien formation. These ships looked like flying fortresses, covered in armor and bristling with weapons, but their most dangerous feature was hidden inside their reactor cores. All ships, implement Protocol 7, Phillips ordered as alien fire began to overwhelm his vessel's defenses. Protocol 7 was humanity's final answer to superior alien numbers. Instead of waiting for their ships to be destroyed, human commanders could detonate their reactors at any time, turning their vessels into massive bombs. The explosion from a single human cruiser could disable or destroy a dozen alien ships. Phillips watched his tactical display as enemy fire tore through his ship's armor. His crew worked calmly at their stations, knowing they had maybe minutes to live. None of them showed any sign of panic or fear. "Sir," his weapons officer called, "we're in optimal position. 17 alien ships within blast radius." Phillips smiled. "All hands. It has been an honor serving with you. Initiate reactor overload on my mark." He paused for just a moment, thinking about the human colonies that would be safe because of what they were about to do. "For humanity," he said quietly, and pressed the button. The USS Last Hope vanished in a ball of nuclear fire that consumed half the alien battle line. Across the battlefield, other human ships made the same sacrifice, turning the space around Terra Nova into a graveyard of twisted metal and radioactive debris. But the battle's most shocking moment came from Lieutenant Danny Ross, piloting one of the new Berserker fighters. His small craft had been crippled by enemy fire, but his nuclear payload was still intact. Instead of dying uselessly, he aimed his fighter at Vextar's flagship and pushed his damaged engines beyond their safety limits. "This is Ross," he transmitted to both human and alien frequencies. "You wanted to see how humans die? We don't die, we explode." His fighter hit the Stellar Dominion's bridge at a significant fraction of light speed. The impact and subsequent nuclear detonation killed Vextar and his entire command staff, leaving the massive alien fleet without central leadership. The battle continued for 6 more hours, but without coordination, the alien forces began to retreat. They had started the fight with 847 ships and overwhelming superiority. They limped away with less than 400 vessels still capable of fighting. The human losses were total. Every ship in the defense fleet was destroyed, and the orbital platforms were burned out wrecks. But they had achieved something unprecedented in galactic military history. A force less than 1/7 their size had inflicted casualties so severe that the enemy fled the field. The news of Terra Nova traveled across the galaxy faster than light itself. On the peaceful world of Alteria Prime, citizens watched the battle footage in stunned horror. "They destroyed their own ships," whispered Elder Kelthani to her companions. "They deliberately killed themselves just to hurt the enemy more." "How do you fight beings like that?" another elder asked. "They treat death as just another weapon." Similar conversations were happening on hundreds of worlds. Species that had never known war were discovering that some enemies couldn't be defeated by superior numbers or better technology. The humans had found a way to turn their own deaths into victory. The Galactic Council emergency session was unlike any in its history. Representatives from dozens of species stood to announce their withdrawal from the war effort. The Kelthran Republic can no longer support this military action, announced Ambassador Felthon. "We have lost over 200 ships and 30,000 personnel. For what? To control a few dozen primitive worlds?" "The Mordesh Collective agrees," added the aquatic representative. "These humans are not expanding beyond their territory. They are not threatening our worlds. Why are we trying to exterminate them?" Even some of the more militaristic species were wavering. The cost of the war was becoming impossible to justify, especially when facing an enemy that seemed to become more dangerous as the fighting continued. Sub-Commander Yexatol, who had taken over the fleet after Vextar's death, stood to address the council. "Honorable representatives," he began, "I have fought these humans in 3 major battles. I have seen things that will haunt me for the rest of my life. These beings don't just fight to win. They fight to ensure that victory against them is meaningless. He paused and looked around the chamber at representatives from races that had known peace for centuries. At Terra Nova, I watched a human commander detonate his own ship's reactor while laughing. His final transmission was a joke about taking us with him. They celebrate death if it means harming their enemies. The chamber was silent except for the translation devices processing his words into dozens of languages. We are not fighting a normal military force, Yextal continued. We are fighting a species that has weaponized its own extinction instinct. Every battle costs us more ships, more lives, more resources, and the humans, they just build more ships and find more volunteers willing to die. The final vote was closer than expected, but the result was clear. The Galactic Council voted 423 to 341 to end the war and establish a permanent quarantine around human space. Not because humanity had defeated them in battle, but because the cost of victory had become unacceptable. President Lisa Hamilton received the ceasefire offer in her bunker beneath Washington, D.C. She read the terms carefully while Admiral Brooks waited for her response. They want us to agree to stay within our current territory, she said. No expansion beyond the systems we currently control. In exchange, they'll leave us alone. What do you think, ma'am? Brooks asked. Lisa looked at the casualty reports from Terra Nova. Another 40,000 humans dead, including some of their best military commanders. But they had broken the enemy's will to continue fighting. I think, she said slowly, that we've accomplished something remarkable. We've taught the galaxy to fear us. Is that good or bad? Brooks wondered. It's survival, Lisa replied. They came to exterminate us because they thought we were dangerous. Now they're leaving us alone because they know we're dangerous. Sometimes being feared is the only way to be free. The war officially ended 3 weeks later with the signing of the Terra Accords. Humanity would remain within its current territory, and the Galactic Council would establish a buffer zone around human space that no Council ships would enter. The final report filed by the Council's military analysts became classified, reading that terrified senior officials across the galaxy, human species represents a unique threat to galactic stability. They possess the psychological capability to turn warfare into mutual annihilation. Victory against them is possible, but the cost makes such victory strategically meaningless. Recommendation: maintain the quarantine indefinitely. Do not engage humans in any military conflict unless the survival of galactic civilization is at stake. Dr. Helen Murphy, who had tried to prevent the war through diplomacy, finally received a response to her peace overtures. The message came from the Alterian High Command.